Hey guys, it's Drew again. Have you ever heard the phrase, get that out of your mouth, you don't know where it's been? Well, stick around. I'm going to tell a story that phrase has never been more true. I'm continuing a series that I'm starting about different friends within the hobby that I've known and different experiences that we've shared together. I did my first one last week about one of my best friends, longest friend for decades, Sean. So go back and watch that video if you haven't. Today I want to highlight a different friend, one that I've talked about before. In fact, one that was actually a guest on my channel back when I first started doing videos almost a year ago. His name is Alan. And I want to give a little background about who he is, how we were friends, how we met, and then a couple of great stories that we shared together through collecting. So Alan moved to the town I'm in, and he started working for me. Actually, he was attending a local college, and he got a job working for me. And he and I just hit it off. Our humor, the way we look at life, the way we look at people, it's just been great. And Alan and I have just been amazing friends. We've done so much together, and even to this day, still communicate, talk, try to see each other at least once or twice a year, just in different ways. And it's a lot of times it's about baseball. So one of the things that Alan is Alan is a huge basketball fan, and when he first got to know me, I'm obviously a big baseball fan, and I didn't know much about basketball history. I knew the big names like Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dr. J, those guys, but I didn't know a lot of the little guys. And it was the same with him with baseball. You know, he knew of Babe Ruth or Pete Rose or whatever, but he didn't know of the little guys, the guys that I would know a lot about. So we spent many hours talking about baseball, talking about the history of basketball, and learning about the where the game developed and the changes within the game. And it was just one of those things we hit it off. Well, as you guys probably know, one of my favorite players that I collected, PC'd, was Ken Griffey Jr. I've got tons of his cards. It was just a lot of fun watching him. And Alan's favorite player growing up was David Robinson. And we would talk about Griffey and we would talk about Robinson and a lot of their similarities as players, their impact in the game when they came in, just different things that they were as people, and of course their collectability. And I remember that Alan, before he moved, when he moved away after he graduated, he found a card. And he bought two copies of it, and he gave me one. And it's kind of like to me, it's sort of like, you know, when a little kid gives a little friendship bracelet or whatever. It's sort of what it was like in cards, but I still have it, and it's still on display in my room. And it was put out in 2003 by Upper Deck, and it's called Ricky Review. I don't know the set it's from, but it actually highlights the fact that Ken Griffey Jr. and David Robinson were both in the first round picks back in 1987. Both of them came into the league around the same time. Both of them impacted the game in a way that was different, just a young, exciting player to watch. And both of them have a place in history as one of the greatest within their respective sports. So I still have this card, and this is just a reminder, not of, you know, the Griffey and Robinson connection, but the connection I have with Alan and some of the fun that we did. If you ever go back and you want to watch one of those videos, it's one of the first ones I put out. We talked a lot about well, our dirt collection and the fact that we collected dirt from stadiums. Any stadium we go to, we try to get dirt, and there's some great stories in there. So really encourage you, go back and watch that video because it's so much fun. But speaking of one of those games we went to back in, let's see, it was 2011. He and I were at a game in Baltimore, and it was the first time I ever got into Camden Yards, and it's just a beautiful stadium. And it was a great time. It was for a birthday trip that my wife had put on for me, and actually it was me and Alan and Sean, my friend that was here that I talked about in the last video. And, you know, there was just so much stuff that we got to do. I got to do a stadium tour. We had great seats for this game. Seeing Camden Yards, seeing all the whole area down there that had been revamped and revitalized in Baltimore was just fantastic. And we had so many great memories. So early before the game, we were out in the outfield, and it was batting practice going on. And you know, as a fan, you want to get a ball, you know, and I'm not a kid. I wasn't a kid. In fact, it was my 40th birthday. So definitely not a kid, but I had never gotten a baseball from a game in any way in my entire life. And I had been to many games growing up. So we're out there and we're kind of watching things, and we notice, you know, obviously, if there's a home run, it was sort of a scramble for it. But if a player turned around and chucked it up into the fans, a lot of times it was a little kid. And I have no problem with that. Give a little kid a ball, make a memory or whatever. But there was this little kid that was, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 seats over, and he was standing there. He was a cute kid. His hat was oversized. The Orioles were playing the Red Sox. He had a big Boston Red Sox jersey on, and he had a big oversized glove. He was just so cute, you know what I mean? And every time a player would get a ball and he would flip it up in the stands, this little kid would be like, "Oh, sir, can I have your ball?" And they kept throwing the baseball up to him, which I'm like, great, but come on, man, you got a bunch of them. Well, I remember this one time that the ball had gotten hit and it got through the players kind of shagging outfield balls, and it rolled up to the wall, and an Oriole player came over. I don't remember who it was, but he picked up the ball, and of course people were like, up here, and the little kid was like, throw it to me, and the guy takes it and he goes to put it, and he like, what? And he points to his shirt and he's like, Red Sox? I don't think so. And Alan is right next to me, and Alan is so funny. Neither of us have any shirts on for the Orioles or anything else, but Alan is just like, Orioles, we love Baltimore. We're huge Orioles fans over here, over here. And the guy turns around and he throws us the ball, and I ended up getting the ball. And, you know, part of me was like, you should give it to the kid, but the kid already had one, and I felt like a kid. So it's a great ball. It's one of the only few balls that I ever have gotten from a field. It's got a batting practice ball with huge wear on it, and it's a lot of fun. But as I look at this ball in my case, you know, I remember that Alan was like acting like a fool to try to get, and really trying to steal a baseball from this little kid. So good stuff from there. But I want to tell the story that I kind of hinted at in the beginning of this video, and probably why you guys are still watching. So we're going to rewind a little bit. And back when Alan and I had gotten to know each other and we were great friends, we were going through this huge eBay purchase thing. You know, I was at the time, let's see, I think I was building a 55 set, and you know, I would go on eBay and I would find cards and they would come or whatever. Well, what he was doing was he wanted to put together the rookie card of the 50 greatest players that the NBA had listed in the year, I think it was 2000. And the 50 greatest players of all time. He wanted their rookie card. This was his big collection. And he had a lot of them. And by the time he was done, he had all but I think 2 of them. He never got the Jordan, and he never got the George Mikan from 48 Bowman. But he had every single other one of them. And it was a beautiful collection. In fact, he asked me to make a display case for him. It was the first display case I had ever made. And it's just a great collection. And but it was one of those things that as he would get cards and he would show them to me, and I would learn about these players and see. And of course, I was used to baseball and vintage, where there was a set every single year. Well, back in those days, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, whatever, basketball and football, they were sporadic. You know, you would have one. So anytime you would have a specific year, there would usually be a lot of rookie cards, because it was the first card, even if the player had been around for a few years. Kind of like back with, say, 33 Gaudy with baseball, there's so many rookie cards in it, even though there's guys that were towards the end of their careers. Anyway, so here's the setup, is he was buying stuff and getting it shipped. I was buying stuff and getting it shipped. And you know that excitement when you get to the mailbox and you pull out, there's a padded envelope, and you can't wait to see, especially when you're getting multiple things. You don't remember which thing it is. This is back before everything was tracked and you knew exactly everything. So it was kind of like Christmas every single time, even though you paid for it and you knew it was coming. Well, Alan, after his first year in college, he did an internship in Africa. And he had purchased or lined up to purchase a number of cards. And what he did was he asked the sellers, when you ship them, can you ship them to my friend Drew's house? So for a few weeks there, I was getting cards because he was out of the country on this internship, and he was getting cards. And so I was just going to hold them for him for the summer, and then when he came back, I was going to hand them to him. So one day I get home and I go to the mailbox, and sure enough, there's a package. And I can't wait to see what it is. But it was one of those things where, man, I had to go to the bathroom. So I'm walking into the house, and I'm ripping open this envelope, and I'm pulling out and seeing, and I see, oh, this is a card for Alan. And I pulled it out. And again, I'm not super familiar with a lot of different players, but I'm really interested in learning about this stuff. And I pull it out, and it's a card, and I'll show what the card is here in a second. But it was a 1957 Topps Paul Arizin card, and I had never heard of Paul Arizin before. And so I'm kind of looking at the card or whatever, and as I'm walking through the house, and I have to go to the bathroom super bad, I go in and I take the card, and I'm looking at it, and I just put it down on the sink, and I take care of business. I do what I have to do, and I'm standing there, but I'm looking over at this card, and I'm seeing like, okay, that's a kind of cool card. I'm knowing a little bit more about the set. I knew it was from '57 because of some other cards he had already gotten, but I didn't know who Paul Arizin was. So I'm trying to think about, oh, he's an interesting card or whatever. So as I finish up, I go and I I flush the toilet, and I am putting my reattaching my belt, and when I do, the tip of my belt flips across, hits the card, and sure enough, the card boom right into the toilet, and it just starts circling around, and I was like, no, like, what am I gonna do? And it was one of those pause moments. It was like made for a movie, you know, to reach in, pause, I don't know. And I grabbed it out. I mean, I knew it wasn't gonna flush, so it was a matter of how much damage is it gonna get in that short amount of time. And I pluck it out. I was like, oh, what am I gonna do? And oh my gosh. So and the card fortunately was in a top loader and it was in a penny sleeve. But I'm telling you, at that point in time, 60-year-old cardboard will absorb moisture very, very quickly, no matter what kind of moisture it was. But there was only a little bit right on the top line where it had got a little wet. So I'm like, oh, what do I do? I can't wash the card. I don't know. You can't sterilize it. It was just one of those disgusting moments that's a classic now. But anyway, I take it and I put it to between some paper towels, and I put it in some books, and I try to keep it flat or whatever. And after a couple days, I check it, and there was no staining on it. There was no evidence of it. There was no sort of, you could tell that this card had been wet. It looked the same as when it came, except for the fact that I knew it, you know, and that card had been in the toilet, and oh, it's terrible. And now I have to wait like 2 months before he gets back to the States to give him his cards. And I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I get him another one? Do I offer it? Do I pay for it? I don't know. And I don't know enough about Paul Arizin to you know, try to find him a replica, or not a replica, but a replacement card. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh. And when he gets back, I'm like, you know, hat in hand and down, I've got a story I've got to tell you, you know, and I tell him this story, whatever. Well, just to know Alan, this just shows how the kind of person he is and the friendship. I remember he throws his head back and he laughs out loud, and he is like, that is the greatest story I've ever heard. And he said, I would never want a different Paul Arizin rookie card because this one's got such a great story, and now it's got a little bit of Drew on it, which is disgusting. So it's funny because, you know, that story, while it's true and everything's great, when I see Pepino Man take out a card and lick it, I always think of that Paul Arizin and think, get that out of your mouth. You don't know where it's been. So there's my story. And Alan has just been a great friend of mine. We have connected and stay connected for so many years. But I just wanted to share that Paul Arizin story and that card. And guys, find another friend, get out there, tell the story, make some stories, get out there and do whatever. So I appreciate you coming along on this journey as I continue through this series. But until next time, you guys be good.